Alrighty, welcome to episode 25 of Post Hunt Clarity. It's been about a month, and it's been
Yeah.
grind for Ben and I all over the United States. Not quite, but between North Dakota, some Missouri hunts, some Kentucky hunts,
In
and
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. It's currently day 3 of Wisconsin gun season right now. So Ben's up here ready for Turkey Day here in a couple days, and it's about to get cold and some snow. So
Yeah, I've been burning the candle at both ends. I think you would say you
yeah,
have
I'm
too.
I'm almost burnt out. There's just so
Yeah.
much has happened since our hunt in North Dakota. Like before we left for North Dakota, I hadn't even hardly hunted my lease, and it was like game on. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, well, the lease is kind of worthless. Splits has been shot. Dad shot him opening day of gun season. I'm waiting for a text or a call. He'll probably honestly call while we're here because he was dropping it off at the taxidermist and going to get him scored. So I was
Oh,
super curious about what that is.
yeah.
I'm still in the 140s ballpark.
I think 140s, but he's a great buck, especially gun buck in northern Wisconsin. But so what we're gonna do tonight, or whenever you guys listen to this, I guess, is we are gonna recap our North Dakota hunt, and then we might get into Gabe's Missouri trip.
Yeah,
depending
there's
on
not a
how-
whole lot there other than there was a deer killed and most of it was a shit show. But the North Dakota hunt was pretty epic. Dude, when did we even leave? Wasn't that like the 12th of October?
The 11th.
11th. We left October 11th for a 7-day venture.
Should we just recap the whole story?
I think
From
so.
drive
To
out there to
Western
drive
North
back.
Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so much epic stuff, and it's one of those where I'm like, I almost wish we did it closer just because I'd have more probably detail. But it's just the whole story is pretty crazy, and the video of it you guys can watch. It's on our YouTube channel, Hunting with Tourette's, and it was pretty sick. Yeah, I'll let Ben kind of dive into how this transpired.
So I drew this tag back in May, right before Gabe's bachelor party. So we started plotting, way back then about when we're gonna go. We kind of knew where we were gonna go. Well, fast forward to October, I came up here. I had a wedding to go to in Rice Lake, where we're both, well, where Gabe lives, where I'm from. Anyways, the day before we wanted to leave, so we left the 11th. I got hammered at the wedding the night before.
You were worthless on that first few hours.
Yeah.
Of the drive.
So I stayed up the whole time with you though, but Gabe drove first few hours out there. I got us the rest of the way there. And immediately it was like, all right, talk to the landowner when we get there, get all settled in, and let's go glass up some deer. So that was Saturday, right?
Yeah, that was Saturday.
So
night.
Saturday it was kind of warm. Like it was one of those where the anticipation for the trip just kept building because like the weather looked better and better as it got closer. Like we got more and more excited. And so we got there and the first day was like 70 degrees. So Gabe was familiar with this property. I had never been there, and when I say property, like friggin'
Ranch.
8,000 acres. Yeah.
It's mixed in. That doesn't even include the thousands upon thousands of public we had access to.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, let's just go drive around. Let's glass up some deer. I brought a spotting scope. We both had good binoculars on the trip. Like, let's just go glass up some deer tonight. And honestly, that's probably the game plan for tomorrow. Let's see what we see. We can drop a game plan from there. So we start off at what we nicknamed the South Patch. And we drive up to this oil pad, and we're about 5 minutes into the first hunt, and I bury my truck in the mud on the
Mind
oil
you, the
pad.
North Dakota, that area of North Dakota is like very well known for being super dry. And last year I was out there, I got told I couldn't drive through the fields because they were worried about prairie fires.
Yep.
And this year's different story. Like they had just got pounded with rain before we got out there, and yeah, him and his road tires pulls up on the oil pad. Basically, like just picture somebody getting all jazzed up for 6 months and they prematurely just blow their wad right away. That's how it felt. And we're buried in the truck.
So we get that out, and I think we glassed that spot for, maybe 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
I think we glassed up a deer. And he's like, all right, let's go north. Because part of what we wanted to do the first night is just get me acclimated with the property so that we kind of, one, I knew where I was going, but two, like when you're bouncing ideas off of each other of where you want to go the next day, where you want to be set up at first light, XYZ, like two opinions helps. So he wanted me to see just as much as I could. So we drove to what we nicknamed the North Patch, um, which is funny because it's not even close to the furthest north piece we had.
Oh,
But
it's more like the middle of the road.
right,
Basically the home farm. That's where landowner lives, and
yep,
it's kind of where the majority of their land is just it's all theirs.
yep. So, and this might be a little hard to picture, but we had what we later established as the loop that we would drive, and
Yep.
it was just this long road down all the way to the landowner's house, and then it literally made a loop at his house, and we could drive the same thing back. And when you got to kind of the top of the loop, so right before the end, we could set up there. There were no vehicles going back and forth. We just pulled off to the side of the road. We'd set up the spotting scope, and we could see for what, 3/4 of a mile
Oh, it was
or
more,
a mile.
say at least a mile facing south and facing west. We're kind of on the highest point there that we could get at, and it's a great vantage point because you could see, which honestly I feel comfortable saying you probably only see about 50% of what's actually there.
Yeah, but everything that we could see, I mean, 85% of it we had permission to hunt. Like
Yeah,
a little bit to the south we couldn't, that we could probably see, but other than that, like we could hunt all of it.
Yeah, and then butting up next to the piece, there's a WMA, but we happened to choose the week. It was opener of pheasant season, and North Dakota has a rule that as a non-resident, you can't hunt on WMAs that first week, and we didn't
Or
realize
plots.
that. Yeah, or plots, and we didn't realize that until we got out there. But that honestly was probably a good thing because we already we found out as the week went on there's almost too much land that
Yeah.
we can't focus on at all. So it worked out to our benefit.
Yeah. So we parked the truck, we're glassing, we're watching, just the amount of deer out where we were at. Like, I mean, I can confidently say you'll see 60 to 70 deer a day.
Yeah,
At least doing what we were doing, where you're driving around glassing and covering a lot of ground. Like if you're
Yep.
set up in one spot where you can see, a decent amount, but not a ton, you're not going to probably see that. But like most of those days, I would say we saw 60 to 70 deer.
Yeah,
at
and
least.
that was
And-
if not more.
So we were watching a bunch of does, and then all of a sudden it was like, the furthest ridge that we could see way out at the end of the property that we could hunt.
Right on the
The
horizon.
highest, right on the horizon, the highest point possible. Gabe's like, oh, there's a buck. Oh, it looks like a good buck. So we got the spotter on him. Really nice 4x4 up there. So this is probably an hour into us glassing.
Yeah, and this is
total.
he was kind of silhouetted out because the sun had already set behind that ridge, so it's like picture perfect. You get a black silhouette of a deer. He's backlit. You can see the rack from about a mile away is where we're
Yeah.
at, and you could tell with the naked eye you could see an outline of a frame. So obviously it's a good deer.
Yep.
Then I throw up. I got 10x42s, and I could see okay, it's definitely a good frame. And I've never been keen on a spotter just because I don't own one. I've only done binocs, but it was so huge benefit that Ben had brought this. Shout out Uncle Adam
Yep.
for lending us a awesome, what was it, a swirl or was it, no, it was a vortex spotting scope. But anyways, he throws that thing up. We had a phone scope or a Mag View or Mag Pro and able to get some film of that deer and see it very clearly that it was a 4x4 with a younger buck that we'd actually seen off the road when we drove by earlier there.
Yeah. So we drove. Oh, that's right. We saw that young buck. That was the first deer we saw in the North Patch. So we were already immediately fired up. We had maybe 2 hours total till dark from the time we started till
I was gonna say
from the time we got there and started glassing. So
at this point,
we've got half an hour left maybe, and so we're like, all right, let's drive back down through the loop because, like you said, there's a lot from up top where we'd park and glass that you couldn't see that you could when you were driving through the bottom. So Gabe had this one cut in mind that he kept seeing giants in last year.
Yeah, the booner.
We
the
never
booner
saw
cut.
a deer in it the whole week. But we kept driving past there with the hope that we were gonna. Well, on the other side of the road, across from what we nicknamed the booner cut, that first night, all of a sudden Gabe's like, oh, there's 2 deer. And there's a creek that runs through the bottom. So we park quick, we start glassing, and it's like, okay, that one's a doe, that one's a buck. And we're sitting there, and Gabe's like, I think that thing's still in velvet.
Yeah.
Which is going to become very relevant later in the story. And it was kind of one of those, we were pretty sure, but we couldn't tell definitively just because he had a lot of brush around him and stuff. But we knew he was a good buck.
He was a nice buck. Real nice buck. And
thought he was a 4x4 at first, right? I think that first night.
Because you and I were going back and forth because I was
I
like,
think
he's
we
in
thought it was
velvet.
a 3x3.
And you were like, he's not in velvet. And then you're like, it's got the rack of a whitetail. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's for sure a mule deer.
Yeah. So we finish up that first night.
Yeah, we covered a lot more ground. We went and drove some of the oil field roads that we had permission to drive on
Oh,
because
that's
they're
right.
leased out. And just basically all of night one was just, let's get Ben familiar with all of what we have to basically just overstimulate him with all this land that you can hunt. And it's an absolute paradise out there for us.
Yeah. So we get back to camp and we're game planning. Now that I'm a little bit familiar, it's like, okay, what do we want to do tomorrow? It's like, well, we're probably going to spend a lot of time behind glass just trying to find good deer. So we wake up the next morning and we knew the weather was going to suck. And it was
Was that the really windy day?
Yeah, it was one of those days where we knew a storm was rolling. Not a storm, but like just crappier, like a cold front was rolling in. And we didn't, I don't think, realize how bad the weather was going to be. Like, and it was one of those days where the warmest point in the day was like
right away in the morning.
Right away in the morning, because the storm progressively rolled in. So it was like 50 at first light.
Yeah, and then I think it got down
And
like
by
into the 30s. So.
What time was it getting dark there? Like 7:30?
I think it was later than that. I think it was damn near 8.
Yeah, it was like 7:30 or 7:40. By like 6 o'clock, it's 35 degrees. Well, literally there were wind gusts of 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, it was one of the windiest days I've ever been.
It was nuts. So before it got super windy, we set up on the loop, same spot we'd been the night before. We glassed up a bunch of deer. Never really saw anything just sitting glassing that we were excited about. So I think we were gonna go north, right?
Yeah, and then we ended up driving by the same creek that we had seen that velvet buck the night before. Well, it was on its feet and it was right there. And
it was like probably 60 yards from the truck, if that. 50 probably.
Yeah, it was probably a little further, but it was just in a position where we had the wind in our face. It was facing the wind. We were behind it, and it was like, let's just see if we can get a stock on and see if this is a deer worth trying to kill.
We knew he was down in this bottom. He kind of ran off. The truck scared him. He didn't like that we kind of stopped in the truck. And him and the deer he was with ran off. I think he was with 2 deer, actually.
Yeah, two other does.
I think it was a doe and like a spike buck.
Maybe. I think.
And we were like, let's go somewhere else, I think.
Yeah, because then we drove up by the oil field ridge and we're glassing down. And
yeah. Because I think what we had determined was like, this was a good buck. And I had said, I am not the type of person that's like, don't shoot on the last day what you wouldn't on the first. Because I'm like, I came here to hunt, and there's a lot of deer that I would be really, really happy to shoot, but I want to get a little bit of hunting in. And the first couple days, like I want to hold out for a giant. Yeah. And if I have to eat my tag at the end because I passed on a solid or nice buck, like I'm okay with that. But I will shoot that buck at the end. And like I know that when I passed this deer, like I know that he's a buck that I would be happy shooting. So it's not that I had written him off, but we drove somewhere else, we weren't gone long.
No, it was like an hour.
And we came back, we're like, let's go put a stock on that deer. If nothing else, like it'll be good experience for me, never spot and stalked mule deer at least. So you had to shit. We parked the truck.
Yeah, I did. I blew chunks out of my hind end right off the corner of the road there. And mind you, this is weird mule deer habitat. All my stalks, whether I've hunted Nebraska or North Dakota, I typically have found mule deer just away from trees, like maybe some sage and some more open country. Well, these deer are down in whitetail country. Like there's a creek, there's shrubs, there's trees. Like so, it's an interesting stalk because it's not. We still had terrain to work with, but it's like okay, it's like a swampy creek bottom, like weird,
like marshy almost.
Yeah.
And so we basically knew the deer was in this bottom somewhere, and this bottom's big. Like again, some are talking about this. You've got to watch the video. Highly recommend you do that if you're interested in what we're talking about, because you can't do it justice just talking about it. But we knew the buck was in there somewhere, but we didn't know there's a lot of places he could have been.
Yeah, there's just so many hidey holes. And mind you, this stock is probably 450 yards total from truck to where we ended up.
Yeah, it wasn't super far. And we had a lot of advantages. Like we had the wind in our face, but we also had a windy day with a lot of marshy grass around us. Like there's a lot of stuff moving. You can get away with a lot more than you normally
Yeah,
would.
and there's so much noise cover, like, noise isn't even a
Yeah.
factor.
No. So we snuck to what would you say, like 100 and no clue where this buck is. And all of a sudden we noticed him probably at like 120 yards
Yeah, like,
feeding.
we had sent a point on Onyx, I'm pretty sure. We got up to a ridge, and you and I were talking, I'm like, "We're within 100 yards of this deer, let's just pop up and see if we can see it." So we popped up, and I think we glassed for 3, 4 minutes, and all of a sudden, boom, we saw an ass. Because a
Yeah.
mule deer rump is very white, and it's very noticeable across all the terrain out there, like, they stick out.
Hmm.
So we saw that, throw up the glass, we're like, "Okay, that's them." And they're
Yep.
slowly moving away from us.
Yep.
Not fast, but I'm like, "We still have the advantage here." Like, we're gaining ground on these deer, wind in our face, they're facing the other direction, like, we can get close.
Yeah. So he was just on the other side of this little oxbow in the creek. And so our plan was to drop down across to the other side of the creek and just kind of loop around the oxbow and get to where we can maybe shoot him. And as we were doing that, there was a bunch of tall cover that we couldn't see over. We kind of had to round the corner. And we were within like 90 yards, 80 yards, 70 yards of where this deer had been. We kept not seeing it. Well, he had dropped down into the actual creek bed. And finally, we rounded the corner enough that I was like, okay, he's right there. Like he's 70 yards. You know, so Gabe snuck up. We sat there behind this bush because now it's like, okay, we're kind of in a tough spot to get to him. We probably could have if we really wanted to try.
Yeah.
So we sat there and watched for a while. We got some good footage of him. We both got to glass him a lot. We watched him go from standing to bedded. And it was one of those where like 70 yards I was pretty comfortable with on that trip, but it was already so windy at this point.
It was
And I'm
ripping.
like,
We're glassing this deer, and you weren't super confident. And we're like, "It's a good buck." It confirmed it is in velvet,
yep.
and
Oh, I forgot that.
it was bedded down. And I think we'd watched it for probably 20 minutes. We sat there and we just like openly having a conversation, not super quiet. Like, okay, like we can wait and try and wait this deer out because it's still in the morning. Like we have
Mhm.
all day. Like we could wait this deer out, shoot it, be done. It's literally our first morning. We deemed like, okay, this deer is of 130 to mid 140s caliber deer, and do we want to shoot that? But because of what we saw the first night, the big 4x, we're like, okay, let's back out. Like we did everything right, and all we would have had to do is wait this out for an opportunity. So wrote that off as success, backed out, got to the truck, and continued on with our day.
Yeah, just tried to take the confidence from it, I guess. And we also were like, maybe you said this. I was opening that window because it's hotter in parts of Africa in here, but we knew, like, granted it was within probably 13 or 14 hours of each other, but like we had seen that buck in the same area twice. We were pretty confident we could get back on him again if needed to. So what did we do after that?
This is where I don't remember, because I'm pretty sure we went to the South Patch and we were just glassing, and that's where like the video footage is. I think we drove the edge just to check.
Oh,
we
yeah,
kicked
that
up
was
that group
that
of
day.
does, because you and I just prematurely were like not thinking about getting skyline, but basically this piece is like we have to start up top and it drops down to.
Well, was that the day that we drove by the water hole for the first time, the pond piece?
No, I don't think so.
I think it was. I think we just were like, let's cover some ground while
Maybe
it's
we did.
miserable. And I remember we drove up through all of the federal land or the state land, whatever it was. You remember we drove through that the first time? And then is that when we went to Hell's Canyon and saw the big one, or was that
No,
Monday?
that was the next day. Yeah. So this day, I remember we covered ground, and I think you're right. I think we checked out the pond. I think
camp.
I was gonna say, because I think what happened was you and I, we drove by the pond. We drove a loop through the South Patch, and then we're like, all right, let's get out and glass. And we walked down the hill, blew out all those does. Then we drove, and we were just checking cuts, and all of a sudden there was like a bachelor group of 3 dinky mule deer that were sparring on the side of the hill. Saw some deer, and then we decided we went back to camp for lunch. I think we chilled for a few hours, and then I think that night is when we went back and we actually went to sit in glass at that pond piece at the very south side because it was super windy.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, yeah, I was kind of enamored by this pond piece. It was like one of the smaller pieces we had. A lot of what was around it we couldn't hunt. It's only 160 acres there.
No, I think it was actually a lot more than that, but it felt like a 160, right? Like
Yeah,
it was probably at least 200 some
which
acres, but
out there, I mean, that feels like hunting 10 acres in whitetail country. Like
yeah,
it does not feel like a lot of land.
but it was
And
surrounded by private. I had never been to that piece in my prior 2 times being out there. And of all the pieces they really had, like this was solely mule deer habitat.
yeah,
Like it was rocky, there was a pond, it was super sagey, grassy, like it said mule deer on it.
yeah. And I don't know, it was just one of those pieces. Like we only saw a couple of deer there. We never saw a buck there.
No.
And we could see pretty much all of it
Yeah.
from the
Either
back side of
either
it.
the road or the backside, because we had glassed. There was a doe and a fawn, or a doe and 2 fawns bedded by the pond, and then we went and sat there for a few hours just to kill time and see, because we're still
Yeah.
like, Ben and I had talked, like we're picky until about Tuesday. Tuesday is like, okay, if we're not on anything mega, we're gonna lower standards a little bit, but
Yep.
this is still Sunday,
Yep.
and it's blurry to me what we did that same night. I
I
don't
remember what we did at the end of the night. We went back to the south patch and set up.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
we
that
went
was
back to where I
miserable.
buried my truck. We parked. We walked out for like the last 35 or 40 minutes of light, I think. I
Yep.
don't remember what we did up to that point that made us be like, okay, for the last little bit, like
Yep.
we've learned enough here. Let's go there. But we walked out of the truck 150 yards and just set up on a knob where we could see a lot. And I remember with like 20 minutes to go, like at this point, the wind's 40 to 50 miles an hour sideways.
And it's 29 degrees.
I was
It's
going
like,
to say, I remember when we got back to the truck, it was 34. And you and I both looked at each other and were like, I don't know that I've ever been this miserable.
well, and with
Like,
the wind chill, it was like single digits. Like, it
yeah.
was bad. And mind you, we dressed for, it was 70 when we got out there. We knew a cold front was coming, but like when you look at your phone weather app, like it tells you like, oh, you got highs in the 40s, lows in the 30s. Like, okay, it's still mid-season gear. Like, I'm not bringing a Fanatic suit out to deer hunt. Like, I got my Stratus pants and like a couple layers. Dude, we were frozen.
Well, and what's hard too is like if we were stalking a deer or whatever, like fine. But what's hard about out there trying to dress for that is you dress to be walking, and then you're either stalking a deer and you get stuck in a spot where you or end up being set up for 30 or 40 minutes.
Yep.
Or you decide to do what we did, where you're dressed to stalk a deer, and it's like, well, let's go sit for 40 minutes and see what we see. Like,
Yeah.
so we're just sitting, expecting to be moving around, and then
But
you just
if
freeze.
you do it vice versa, then you sweat your ass off.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I got a pack, like I can roll up a jacket and stuff, but we weren't carrying like frame packs to like, okay, hey, we're gonna completely lose a bunch of layers. Like it was just,
Yeah.
you're either sweating or freezing. There's no in between.
Yeah. So I don't remember the specifics of the rest of the day Sunday, but what I remember is we covered a lot more ground. We saw some pieces that you had never really put some time into,
Yeah.
and we didn't see a ton of deer like in a spot where we thought we could kill them. We saw a lot of deer. Like I remember bumping what we called the cliff, where you said the 3 bucks were fighting, and we kind of smartened up. We're like, if we want to see deer and find a booner, like let's just wind bump some of these deep cuts and stuff and see what blows out of them. Like we've got all week to hunt. And so we just did that in a few spots and never found anything we really wanted to shoot. We went and set up at last light at the south patch, saw 1 deer, I think.
Yeah, and it was for like seconds. It crawled into the sage patch because even they didn't want to move. They were like, "Fuck this!" But the benefit of that is the next day, Monday, the weather was going to be nice. Like it was a very dim, like 8-mile-an-hour wind. It was like getting up to maybe 42.
It was cold, but
it was still a little chilly. But it was like, okay, after a really crappy day, we expected the deer to move, and it was Monday morning right off the bat was just lights out. Like,
yeah, I don't even remember. What did we do right away in the morning? Did
we made the drive on the loop.
Yep.
And on the way back,
I remember this. I just didn't remember what we did leading up to that.
Yep. So we just did a drive in the loop and we're glassing again. Then it's weird because I was super convinced that year after year I had been there in October last year, the deer I'd find in the same places. It was not the case. Like in an area I'd never seen mule deer before. Also, we're driving in behind the landowner nephew's house up on the hill. Also, we see a bunch of turkeys. In the first 2 days, that 3x4, the velvet buck with the does, always were with this group of turkeys. So I see turkeys. All of a sudden we're driving, and I'm like, Ben, I see like they're deer. Like I can't tell you how many, but it looks like a dozen.
Yeah.
So we keep driving. We're like, okay, they're moving this way. The wind's in our favor. Let's just park in. I mean, I don't know. It's probably quarter mile.
No, the wind. I remember the wind wasn't in our.
No,
like,
it
we
wasn't.
were
You're
kind of
right.
worried about it, and I kind of said like, "Screw it, let's just do it." We don't even know what these deer are. Like, if
Yep.
if it's a booner, at least we're gonna know he's here now. And if it's not a booner and we bump him, who gives a shit? Like,
Yep.
and so we hoofed it. Probably what, half a
That's what I
mile?
was gonna say. I bet it didn't feel. It feels like a 40-acre jump, but it was.
Yeah.
I bet it was a half mile because we had to go through some dead shit, past a bunch of turkeys, up a hill, down a cut, through a dried up pond, and then back up. And then we get up and we're looking at Onyx and we're like, we don't know exactly where those deer were, but we gotta be close.
And at this point, we're looking southeast.
Yes, we're looking
and we
southeast.
expected the deer to be southeast, and it was all of a sudden one of us turned around, and you're like,
yeah, because we were coming up a hill, and like as you walk up, you can only see what's eye level. You can't really see past that with the way the grass was. And Ben and I are looking, and I'm like looking at the background, and I'm like, God, those deer had to have been right here. We turn, and literally at like 70 yards, boom, deer staring at us.
I don't know how we didn't see them sooner. Like, either they moved a little bit to the north, or we just cut too far south. But we had actually gone past them. And so they didn't freak. It was one of those where, like, for 30 seconds, we were trying to figure out where the deer were, and they must have been watching us the whole time.
Yeah, or
and it
we
just
saw 'em
so
at the same
happened that
time,
they
yeah.
didn't spook until we turned around and saw them, and that's when
Yeah.
they spooked. And so we didn't really know what they were. And so Gabe has footage of it. It's not in the video, I don't think. But
No, it's
I
not.
literally went, like, I took off because there was a knob there. We could just see like the tops of some heads, and then all of a sudden I could see rumps going. We couldn't really tell what they were.
No, we did see the rack because I remember. I remember seeing the 3x4.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, that's the 3x4."
Yep.
Running up the hill, so Ben does the old hunting public. And
I
starts
literally took off
chasing Mach 10
sprinting after
them
just to see what they were. And I was like, okay, little buck, 3x4, bunch of does, another little buck, like nothing super exciting. Well, we bumped them quite a ways, and we're like, shit, because they went towards where we can't hunt. And then walking out of there, we bumped them again, even
second
further.
time, and I'm like, "Well, those deer are gone for the next 2 days."
Yeah, we're like, okay, yeah, like that sucks. So then we might have stopped somewhere in between, I don't remember, but the main takeaway from this was we went somewhere that we hadn't really glassed called.
We dove into Hell's Canyon after that.
That we called Hell's Canyon, and it was just it's this huge ravine like bowl thing.
So to
It's
give you
sweet.
perspective, you should just watch the video. But where we're hunting basically on the main farm is open country, more rolling hills. Well, as you get closer to the river system, it cuts out into steep badlands. Like it goes from maybe 150 feet of elevation change to all of a sudden it's like 300-400 feet elevation change, steep, like muddy, rocky. Like this is mountainous terrain, and it's freaking beautiful. But our landowner again has 100. I think that one's a 160, or maybe it's
No, that one's actually bigger than you think. I think
they all are. But
um,
anyways, yeah. So giant. He's got a
curious now.
landlocked piece out in the middle of this grassland. And we like, oh, let's dive over the hill. There's a great glassing knob. We can see all the way up a mile. We can see all the way down a mile towards the river system. Great spot to glass. Well, we don't leave 50 yards from the truck and peek over the edge, and all of a sudden we got a doe and two fawns sitting at like the bottom that kind of see us. And we start moving down, and they kind of blew out of there, and we're like, all right, well, let's just go.
Oh, it is a 160. You were right.
Yeah, let's just go set up and get at this vantage point where we can just sit in glass for a couple hours. Well, Ben and I start walking down, and I have some footage of him walking on the side of the hill. And what sucks is I don't have footage of this buck. But basically what happens is Ben says, we get to this glassing spot, and we look straight to our west, up higher than us, and we see this buck, like up on its feet, looking at us. And I don't think you even got glass up on it. I think I threw up glass, and I'm like, I'm like, Ben, that's a big buck.
That deer was a pig. I still think that might have been the biggest deer we saw on that trip.
At least 160s, if not bigger. Like I'm guessing it was probably 170 class plus.
That deer was huge.
Yeah.
Like, it was a really good buck, but I just remember I did get my glass on him, and like That deer was probably what, 300 yards?
Yeah, it was a ways.
And he filled the whole frame of my binoculars. Like that deer was just giant.
So
And so then we kind of looked at ourselves and we turned and looked at where we thought we were set up good, and we're like, yeah, no wonder he picked us
yeah, we
off here.
stick
We
out
have
like
no
sore dicks.
cover.
Yeah.
And so we debated. He had gone to the backs. There's this like steep finger of a ridge that sticks out. And we were like, okay, he either just he stayed on the front side of that, just where we couldn't see him, and bedded in one of the cuts on it, or he went up and over the top and he's on the back side. So what do we do? Like, do we just do nothing and come back and hope we can glass him up tomorrow? Do we dive in there and see if we can get on him just by random chance?
And mind you,
Like,
that some of the decision factor has Ben and I, like, do we want to be lazy or do we want to grind? Because the terrain we have to go through is an absolute fucking grind.
yeah.
And we sat there and it was like, I told Ben at the beginning of the trip, I'm only like, I will push as hard as you want to push. Otherwise, like, I'll be lazy if you want to be lazy, but if we want to kill deer, we're going to need to push. And we looked at each other and we had most of the day. And so these cuts, not only are they steep, but there's actually a lot of trees once you get down in the bottom of them. Like, it's more whitetail country looking in the bottom. Like, I don't, bunch of quakies, popple trees, aspens mixed with some type of oak and whatever tree. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty deciduous. So it's like, once you get down in the bottom, like, it's hard to see. Like, we could spook a bunch, but him and I look at each other and we're like, you know what, dude, fuck it, we ball. Like, let's just grind, go up and down.
Yeah, neither one of us had really had to work hard to motivate each other on that trip. So we got over to where he was bedded and we started kind of second guessing. Like, at this point, we had done all the work to get to him too. Like, you know, the rest of that hike was going to be fairly easy to where we thought he was. We had to go maybe up and over one more little knob, but we just started thinking, and I think at this point I was like, tomorrow morning we need to be set up here glassing. Like, let's maybe not bump him. We don't know where he is. Like, and we both kind of said, like, there's not much of a point in just diving in completely blind. Like, we're gonna
because
bump
we're
him
gonna
again.
blow everything.
Yeah. And so we ended up backing out. And then what did we do? Because I think if I remember right, we pretty much hunted all day Monday. Like, I think we stopped at the shack for like maybe half an hour.
I think we got some lunch or something quick, but then we were looking. We're like, you know what? Let's do something different and go. This leads up to the best hunt I've had in many years.
Yeah.
Where Monday night, all of a sudden the weather's good. I'm like, let's go hunt public in this grassland, kind of in the area or whatever. And we picked out a saddle on the map.
Well, we stopped there. So after we bumped that buck, we drove over to the public.
Yep.
And we stopped there and we were seeing a shit, not to cut you off, sorry, but we saw a shit ton of deer.
Yeah, next to the big river.
Yep. And then we're like, okay, now we kind of know what we want to do tonight. I think you had maybe picked out this saddle. We talked about it and we're like, we can set up right kind of on the west side of the saddle, kind of in the saddle, but tucked off to the side.
Just so we could make a play one way or the other.
Yeah.
The goal was like, if we're going to see deer below us, we have this giant knob that comes out above us where we can go left or we can go right and still have some cover to move. Because Ben and I had made that mistake once or twice. Now we got smarter. Like, we're going to set up where we have backdrop. But not only do you want cover while you're glassing, you need to make sure that you have escape routes. So if you see a deer you want to go after, you need to make sure you can get after that deer without getting, seen.
Well, and part of what led up to us wanting to go here is we had seen a bunch of mule deer in the background, but we were wind bumping these cuts along this steep kind of cliff type thing, and we bumped probably a 2.5-year-old, but we bumped probably 150-inch
whitetail out of there. Yep.
And my tag was either sex, either
sex, either species.
Yeah, either sex, either species. That's what I'm trying to say. And so, like, I was there to kill a mule deer, but I'm like, okay, we've seen a lot of mule deer here, and if a 150 walks by me, whitetail, like, I'm going to have a hard time not killing it. And you had a whitetail tag, so we're like, worst case scenario, I can try and hand my bow off to Gabe and give him my release, and maybe he can shoot it. So we got set up in there early, if I remember right. It was like 3:30.
Yeah, because we had 5.5 hours to sit.
Yeah, we saw this. We had been close to this spot, and we saw this spot on the map. But what we realized when we got down in there is this saddle is like a freaking deer highway. Like
Yeah, there was tracks everywhere. And
everywhere
we
in
had
it.
bumped like just trying to get down to it, kicked up 3 mule deer right off the bat, and that was like in the video you can hear me and Ben talking. I'm like, just have your bow ready, have an arrow nock because you never know. And like
Yeah.
seconds later, all of a sudden, boom.
Well, because so these cuts are almost like a cliff in a lot of spots, and the deer, if they want to get to the next cut, they can't just go up and over really. Like
Yeah,
they
they
have
gotta
to go
scale the
around
side,
it.
yep.
Well, this saddle is literally just a broken finger, basically. Like it literally looks like somebody took the middle part of the finger and just like bulldozed it
Yeah,
out.
blew
of
it
there.
out with dynamite.
And so it's just like the perfect spot for them to cross. So we got set up. We're watching just like a ton of deer. And I think like we decided we needed to move like 20 yards so we could see a little bit more and be closer to where a deer might pop out from.
Yeah.
So right as we go to move, there's a white-tailed doe on the bottom looking at me.
Yep.
Like right as I stood up. So I'm in a staring match with this thing for like 5 minutes. Finally it goes. We get moved. We're watching a bunch of deer. All of a sudden to our south, I think I noticed it.
Snaggle rack.
Snaggle rack. A good like 3.5-year-old whitetail. Weird rack, like perfect 4 on one side, and then just this like gnarled up, like probably 14-inch spike out of the right
Yeah,
side of his head.
with like a couple stickers out.
But
of
he
it or
had
whatever.
stickers that were still like 8 inches long. Like it was weird. It was like he had 3 main beams coming out of that
Yeah.
side of his head almost.
Which there's film of this deer. You can watch the video and
Yeah.
you'll see it.
So we watched him for frickin' ever, it felt like. Then all of a sudden, we started having deer pop out below us. Whitetails. And they walked through the saddle, and it was like each one kind of knew we were there, but not a single deer ever picked us off.
Yep, they couldn't smell
Every
us.
deer crossed us at like 20 yards. We're set up on the ground like it was sweet. And so at one point, we had a doe walk out, and it's like dead calm this night. We can hear more deer in the bottom, and we hear just a ton of grunting.
Yep.
We're like, here we go, like big whitetails coming out, like get ready. And it was like fork buck, followed by fork buck, followed by like 6-pointer,
Yeah, basket
like
6. Yep.
just all these dinky little things kept coming out. But to make a long story short, we
had to have seen 80 deer.
I was gonna say we saw probably 80 deer that night.
And mind you, like we're not even explaining that from a mile away on the riverbank, we're watching a group of like 12 mule deer.
Yeah.
And just like they're coming and coming. And we had a couple of these does or these smaller bucks that we watched scale the side of this cliff. And that's one of the coolest clips in the video where Ben's like, dude, you got to be getting footage of this. Because these deer are like mountain goat mode, just going nuts. And it's like, there wasn't a second of that night that we weren't watching deer. Like, it made 5 hours go by real quick.
Bucks fight. And
yeah,
like
sparring and just like...
It was sweet. So we get back to the truck and we're like, that was an awesome hunt. But
so we left a little early because we got to the point where like, okay, like most of these deer have moved on. We have about 40 half hour left of daylight. Let's get back to the truck, jet as fast as possible, and see if we can get to the North Patch and Glass.
Yeah. And so we're in the truck and we're like, okay, that was probably like top 5 sits of either of our lives.
Yeah.
Just from like the fact that we were on the ground with no cover other than what was there. Like just
in public.
Saw a ton of deer, like just a sweet, like action-filled hunt. But we both said the one thing we didn't do that was our goal of really going down in there was trying to locate a big buck.
Mule deer.
Well, we get back to the North Patch, and all of a sudden on my left, I'm like, okay, there's a deer. And I'm driving the truck. Like, we're going 40 miles an hour at this point.
Yep. It's only 20 yards off the road. Ready to cross from the private we can't hunt, basically right on the property line of our landowner's property.
Yeah, and at this point, it wasn't even like, I don't think we were going to glass. I think we were going home.
Yeah. Yep.
And like it was one of those where it's dark enough that I could tell there was a deer, but through my windows, and I don't even have tinted windows, but like through my windows, I couldn't see what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 30 yards from us. So I locked up the brakes pretty much, rolled the window down, and it's like, holy shit, that's a giant. Like, pretty sure it's the buck we saw the first night.
It is the big 4x4. It's a 160s-ish class mule deer.
Yeah, so he's walking like kind of diagonally towards where we saw him the first night. So Gabe gets some quick footage of him, And he's like, all right, get the fuck out of here before we bump him. Well, we make it 90 feet down the road.
And out my window, I roll it down and there's 3 other bucks.
Yeah.
One which is a really nice deer, just a touch. He's a little smaller than the big buck, followed with 2 younger, scrubbier bucks.
Yeah.
So we're like, perfect. They're heading right up to where we glassed him the first night.
Yep.
We're in the cards for tomorrow. Like tomorrow, we got a plan. We know where we need to be. Ben and I are going to sleep like with woodies because we're just so confident that like, dude, we're in the game finally. Like we're confidence at an all-time high. This is it.
Yeah. So we get up the next morning and we're like, okay, we're gonna go to where we glassed him the first night. We're gonna climb up there. We're not gonna be super aggressive. We're gonna hope we can catch him on their feet and make a play on him. And so it's like probably not even legal light yet. No, it wasn't legal light. Our goal was we were going to get it in there and try and get set up in a like a little patch of sage or whatever, right at gray light. And neither of us have been up there. And this is probably the highest point around, I would say. And Gabe never went up there last year. We hadn't been up there. Well, we didn't realize how much terrain there was back there too. Like we thought it was just like a big hill basically. Like no, there were a bunch of cuts in the hill and so we get up there and we're like, okay, let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep like, here's where we think maybe they are. Well, all of a sudden we kind of let our guard down and I look up and there's a doe, like, you know, over this little hill, like down in the bottom, fucking 50 yards from us, looking right at us. And I'm like, shit. All of a sudden I see another doe and they go stotting off. And then I look and I'm like, shit, there's 3 bucks right there in the bottom.
Yeah,
like
the big
just
one.
Staring at us, the big one. And so we both hit the deck and we're just waiting it out. And we're like, it's kind of one of those where like they were further from us. They were probably 80. No, they were like 100 yards.
They were over 100. And the does, we spooked the does, but not necessarily. Like the doe saw us, but the bucks didn't.
Yeah.
So the doe started off, ran past the bucks, and put yourself into the bucks position as they see does fly past them, but they have no rhyme or reason as to why.
And our wind was good.
Yeah, we sat in a staring match for 10 minutes.
Yeah, so the bucks are like, well, what's up there? You know, and they start walking towards us. And we're like slowly, not a lot, but they maybe made up 10 yards.
Yeah, to the point where they dropped in the bottom and we couldn't see them.
Yeah, and we kept kind of like, we're like, shit, this might actually happen. So there was a tiny sage bush up to our left on the fence line. And the fence line is where we can and can't hunt. Like, they're 10 yards onto where we can't. But we're like, let's crawl over to that sage patch, pop in there, and maybe they'll pop out. So we sit there, we wait for probably another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, these deer probably aren't there anymore. So I'm like, I'm just going to sneak down into the bottom and see if I can see them. So I sneak down there, can't see them. And at that point, we're like, shit, well, what do we do? So we walked kind of the finger of the ridge, the high point, out to where we could see way back into this cut. And all of a sudden we pick them up again, just kind of milling around. And then we watch them bed down. So we're like, okay, tonight they're probably going to cross the fence and go back to where they were last night. So we'll just set up in that tiny sage bush and wait them out, hunt them like whitetails. And so don't really remember. This episode's already getting kind of long. So
no, this is good because this is a good one. Because this is, mind you, we lost those deer. We thought we spooked them. So we're like, let's get higher so we can glass that cut. So Ben and I back up, kind of go around and get to another vantage point where we still have cover. And boom, those bucks didn't spook off. They were in that cut.
Yeah,
still.
they ran like, 80 yards back to the south up the
forgot we existed, and we're watching these deer. And that's where all of a sudden confidence goes back up because we're like, okay, we didn't completely fuck this up. They're going to come back out here tonight. We can get on them.
Yeah.
So basically it was like, all right, we just need to kill time all day because this is our game plan. And I think we drove back to Hell's Canyon, did some glassing. We actually we're going to dive in there, but we saw there was another guy hunting the public there, and we didn't want to ruin it. And we actually glassed him up, and he waved to me. So Ben and I decided, like, he was heading back to the truck. So we drove all the way around, talked to him. Super friendly young guy, kind of local, and he's telling us, he's like, yeah, we never ran into a whole bunch of pressure out here. Like, I didn't. He's like, I thought you guys were working on the oil field.
Yeah.
We're like, no, we're here to kill deer. So we spent most of that day I don't remember what else happened, but I'm
I
pretty sure
do.
we just killed time.
So we glassed up there for a little bit. We were watching some bucks fight then to the public
Yep.
east of there. And then I think we drove back to the pond piece. Didn't see much of anything there. And then we're like, okay, let's go to, I don't remember what we called it. Let's go to just like the ravine on the public over by the landowner's house where
Yep.
you had sat the
Right
year
right
before.
behind their house.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
And so we kind of were sneaking our way out there. We had bumped a couple deer. There's this just like huge ravine. Big spider on the wall.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill
We're
that. But
watching-
keep
yeah,
going. Yeah.
Get that prick. And so we're watching deer. We'd bumped a deer or two. It's just like this huge ravine with like a creek bottom that flows through it. It's
Wide
pretty
open.
sweet. And so we're walking down this ridge, kind of getting to where there's like some sticks just like growing up out of the ground. I don't really know what you would call those
I
things.
don't
It
know.
literally looks like little like oak branch twigs just growing up out of the ground, like maybe 2.5 feet tall. So we're like, we can sit in those, have a little bit of cover.
Yeah.
We just need to make it to the end of this knob and we can set up in glass. And all of a sudden, like, we're kind of sneaking down this knob, trying not to get skylined. I think we were like on our knees at that point. And I kind of peek my head up and I'm like, Gabe, big buck. Like,
Yeah.
down in the
all
bottom.
jazzed up.
And I'm like, he's looking right at us, but I don't think he's really seen us yet. I think he's just seeing movement. And so we hit the deck. We kind of sneak to where, we're on the back side of the ridge and we can just pop over and kind of glass. And so I don't remember. He kind of bumped off into this cut, and then we watched him stand in the cut for a while. And at this point, we realized it's the 3x4.
Yeah, you literally on video, you're like, well, it's the 3x4
Yeah.
again. Because we'd bumped into this deer every day of the trip so far.
Yeah. And so we, and mind you, we had thought we blew him from, here back to Wisconsin.
Yeah, and
The
all
day
of a sudden,
before.
this deer is 1.5 miles from where we bumped him the prior day.
And he's the opposite direction of where he ran to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, long ways. And,
Because this was the day where you were all of a sudden like, you know what, it's Tuesday. Because you had said earlier this trip, after we passed him the first time, and then we bumped him the second time. So on the third time, you're like, if I see that deer again, I'm gonna shoot that deer.
yeah, I'm like, he's beat me 3 times so far. I mean, the first time he didn't really beat me, but he kind of did. I'm like, he's beat me 3 times. Or no, at this point it was 2 times.
Yep.
And I'm like, he's not beaten me a third. And so I'm like, let's go after him. So he's kind of milling around in this cut, and then he drops back down into the bottom. And he got to he was probably 50 yards from where that creek goes to.
Yeah.
So I had come up with what I still think to this day is an awesome plan that we would have killed him then. We could drop down the backside of the ridge we were on, drop into the cut. From there, the only open spot that we really had was like 20 yards from us to the creek bed. And the creek bed was probably 3 feet below the ground level.
It was more than that, but yeah.
But then there's another 2 feet of grass there. So it's like we could have walked, we literally could have walked, the entire way up the creek bed to 50 yards from him without him being able to see us. All we had to do was pick a time where his head was turned and book it to the creek bed. And, it was windy enough, I think, that day that he wouldn't have ever heard us. Our wind was okay enough that I think we would have been fine. And so we're at the point where it's that 20 yards we need to book it. And all of a sudden from way to our east, never saw us, something else scared them, come 2 whitetail does just hauling ass. Something bumped them. They dropped down into the bottom. They ran within 50 yards of the 3x4. And the 3x4 was like, well, those deer are scared. I should probably be scared too. Yeah. And fucking takes off. So we're like, shit, where'd he go? So I don't remember how we
You ran up the hill after he spooked. You hauled ass up the hill, started glassing in. We watched it go over a cut, and we're like, we're going to sit here and watch for 10 minutes because we can see if that deer leaves on the backside of the cut. And
that's
further
what it
away.
was.
So we're like, if he doesn't come out, we know he's there and he's killable.
Yeah.
So we waited up top, and we're watching the spot, and we're like, all right, he didn't move. Let's make a long, giant ass. I mean, it'd be well over a half-mile loop around just to kill this deer. And all of a sudden we look, and below us there's the 3x4. He somehow snuck through the woods.
Like,
unbeknownst, no idea how he made it through without
that's
us
what it
seeing
was.
but
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then he starts cutting over and he kind of sees us. We're like, all right, well, we just got to get down. Well, we start heading down, and all of a sudden we just blow out like 6 other does and
Yeah.
fawns. And then we watch the 3x4 basically run towards where we were seeing it the first day, up and over the hill and dive into a patch of sage. And we're like, okay, well, we know that deer's in that area. It's kind of that time of night. Let's go get our game plan going for the other big bucks.
Yeah, and so our we weren't too upset because like our plan was to go after the big one the whole time. We'd watch those deer bed down. We're like, we really think if we had a marginal plan at best, but we're like, if we can just make it work, it works. Kind of one of those.
Because the wind was
out of
the east.
We had a very
bad.
marginal wind. We had a very marginal amount of cover, but we're like, if we can just sit here and somehow pull this off, it's gonna work. And that was kind of plan A anyways. But at this point, I'm like starting to kind of get a little pissed. This was the point where I said to you, I'm like, that deer's beat me 3 times now. He's not beating me a 4th. Like, if we run into that deer again, he's going to die. And so I don't really remember midday. Well, this already was kind of midday.
Yeah,
I don't remember what we did after that. Then we hoofed it in. We got set up in our little one piece of sage on this fence line.
Yeah, because it was going to be a 4-hour wait. It was we were like ambush whitetail hunting at this point. Like our wind was out of the east southeast, and these deer are like we're anticipating these deer are going to come out straight to our east. We're sitting on the fence line. The goal is we need the shooter buck to cross the fence first. You're going to kill him as soon as his 4 hooves hit the ground.
Yeah,
and we're getting in there early. We're waiting these deer out.
Yeah. And so we wait for we got in there at probably 3:30.
Yep.
And at this point, it's probably 5:30 or like 5:20.
Yep.
Oh, I just farted. And all of a sudden, like I had stood up and was kind of standing there because I could just see a little bit around this shrub we were sitting in, this sage. And Gabe's like, am I good to stand up? And I'm like, yeah. And all of a sudden he stands up and there's a freaking doe looking at us from where the bucks had came. And she blew all the other deer out of there. But we couldn't see the other deer, so we didn't know.
No.
So then we spent half an hour trying to run back up to where we were that morning, glass, see where they had gone. I think we did see them again.
Yeah, we watched them. They went further south, which is the wrong direction, onto the neighbors. Yeah. And then they completely kind of blew out of there to the point where like, dude, we don't know what to do. Like, is there a chance they come back? I don't think these deer are coming back tonight.
Yeah.
Like, we're now back to fucking square zero. And Ben and I are just having a long conversation up there. Like, I think it's now 6-something.
It's like probably 6:10 at this point. We're like, what do we do? And finally we're like, let's pull out of here. Let's drive the loop again. Like, it's still only Tuesday at this point. We have until Saturday. Or through Friday to hunt. Like, we're still fine. Let's go. Just maybe we can find a different deer. And at this point, we had driven the loop a lot, but we're like, maybe there will be a different deer in there or whatever. So we drive the loop, and we get back to where we're doing the second half of the loop, and all of a sudden, up on the ridge, like Gabe described the first buck, like sun's starting to set. It's kind of a gloomy afternoon, but there's a little bit of sun, like perfectly on the horizon line. It's like, there's a deer. Oh, it's the old 3x4. And so Gabe asked me, he's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, at this point, we've got probably an hour till dark, but it was gloomy, so probably 50 minutes till dark.
Yeah, and I think you had told me that you had like some elaborate plan to like go up and around, and I was basically trying to convince you.
No, I said we can go right to that. I'm like, that deer's in a spot where we can
I was going to say, because I think you said that for some reason. We got down to the bottom, and it was like a conversation where like, it was super quick. We're like, we're going to haul ass. We got to cover 300 some yards, and we could pop over this hill, and hopefully this deer's within like 60 yards.
Yeah. So Gabe asked me, he's like, do you want to just try and bed him down? We can maybe get on him in the morning. Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, he's in a spot where we can kill him. He's standing in like a finger of, it wasn't even really like a cut. It was like,
it was the very top of the cut. It was the very top where the drainage goes from flat to.
It was like I describe it as like a finger of a cut almost. Yeah. And next to it was like what I'd describe as like a finger or a peninsula of just like land. Kind of hard to visualize, but so we had to run through the bottom. So I'm like, I'm literally going to park the truck. I'm not putting my jacket on. I've already got my binos on. Gabe, grab the camera. We're going to haul ass over there. And so I literally parked the truck, grabbed my bow, we crossed the fence to get in there, and
Full on
we
sprint.
literally go on like full on sprint for 300 yards. And I'm like, we're going to kill this deer. And I knew that, like, and I think you did too once you bought into the plan,
Mhm.
that the whole reason I liked that is we could go through the bottom. He was on like the back side of almost like that
Yeah,
peninsula
we had
land
cover
from
all
us
the way until it was about shooting range.
until we were 80 or maybe 90 yards from him. He never was going to see us.
Yeah.
So we get up there. Well, there's the freaking turkeys that Gabe talked about again, and
Mixed
they
with cows.
scatter.
Yep.
They scatter everywhere, and then the cows go running off. So the deer was kind of on edge, and so we're just sneaking over this ridge, and all of a sudden I'm like, shit, there he is, like,
100
70,
yards.
probably 75 or 80 at this point.
Sure,
like,
right away.
pretty close. And at this point, I'm like, he's seen us. This is busted. Well, we had just kind of like those sticks of cover I was talking about earlier. Like, we had some of those around us. And when we walked to the other side, looking back, we were realizing that between like the gloominess and the fact that we had a little bit of a background, like, he could probably see a little bit of something there, but really couldn't tell what we were.
Yeah.
Or
And we're not on the spine of the ridge anymore. We had actually just dropped over the other
Yeah,
side. So
right.
we technically have dirt just to, like, if we were completely standing up, our heads are taller than the backdrop, but while we're crouched, like, it's almost perfect.
Yeah. So at this point, he's probably 70 yards from us, and he's on the other side of a tree, so I can't shoot him. So he starts walking, kind of diagonaling away from us towards the other side of the cut. So I start trying to, as he's behind the cover, I'm trying to creep along and stay close to him. Well, he pops out on the other side, and he's like 85 yards, and Gabe's behind me, and he can't really see quite as well what is going on. I think you can see.
I was
deer, but-
watching it through the camera.
So at this point, I'm in a staring match with this. Like, he again notices something's moving. He's popped out kind of in the open. I haven't had a chance to range him yet. And like, I'm thinking he's pretty far, probably too far to shoot. But I'm like, okay, he hasn't busted out of here. We're not out of this yet. So I'm in a staring match with this deer for what felt like an eternity. Probably was about 3 minutes or so the first time around.
Actually 5.
Yeah, about 5 minutes the first time around. And my foot's under me, completely asleep. My whole leg's cramping up. So finally the deer's like, okay, nothing's moved. Like, it's all good. Turns his head, starts walking again. So I'm like trying to creep along on my knees to stay up to, like,
You only made it like another 4 yards.
yeah. And all of a sudden he turns and looks again. And I'm like, shit. So I'm kind of using my bow to hide behind. And I'm taking my rangefinder and I'm ranging like the next opening I think he's going to get to. And I'm like, okay, that's 90. And am I doing a good job of explaining this?
This is perfect.
And so we're in another staring battle at this point. And again, my leg is completely asleep at this point. I don't think Gabe had a clue whether I was going to shoot, try and get closer.
In my head, I'm like, I know this is Chimmer range right now.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Wayne Gretzky, like, you'd miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You've been shooting out to 120, like, and it's not calm. Like, we have, but like, there's 15-mile-an-hour gusts or so that are coming in and out.
But there were pockets of calm. When it wasn't gusting like that, it was like dead calm.
Yeah, it was just
But then you'd catch a gust. Yeah, it was weird. And so I'm like 90 yards. So I turn my dial to, I think I left it at 90. And I'm like, I'm not going to shoot that far, but just in case, I'm going to be ready. And so all of a sudden the deer completely turns its head and just starts walking, like when a deer walks into your tree stand with no clue you're there, like when a mature buck's just walking.
It couldn't be any more fucking broadside.
No, it's perfect. If anything, it's maybe a cunt hair quartered away from me. Like, perfect. And so I'm like, all right, now's my chance. He's about to hit that hole. So I'm like, I draw, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to shoot. Because at this point, I don't think I'm going to be able to get stood up.
Yeah,
and
you're still crouched when you drew.
I can maybe make that shot at 90, but I cannot do it not standing up. Like, that's a way harder shot. And so I draw, and I stand, and I didn't know this at the time, but Gabe's sitting there thinking, why is he standing up? This deer's looking at him. Well, he didn't realize the deer had completely looked away. Well, once I got stood up, got settled in, and I'm getting ready to shoot, the deer stopped and turned and looked at me again. But it wasn't until that point that he noticed something there. So finally I get kind of settled in and I'm still on the fence. I'm like, am I going to shoot or not? And I don't know what kind of came over me, but it's like, all right, like, yep, I'm going to shoot this deer and it's going to die. Like, I'm killing this thing. It's not meeting me again. And so I knew he was just on the other side of where I had ranged. So I'm like, okay, he's 91 yards. And I settle in, and I remember one wind gust kind of came through that caught me and drifted me towards like his back legs. And I let that pass, and I got settled in, and I just let it fly. And I remember I've got lighted knocks, and I remember watching that knock fly, and I'm like, oh, it's flying so good right now. Like,
dude, it took like 5 minutes for that arrow to
yeah,
get there, it felt
that's
like.
where I was going with that. It's like in slow, like I still remember it, like it's in slow motion. And it's just flying so good. And I'm watching it, and I'm watching it, and I'm watching it. And when you shoot it that far, your arrow's dropping so much that every shot you take looks like it is
It looks
low,
like you launched. It will look like you launched way over its back.
way
when you first
over it.
shoot,
But
yeah.
as you're watching it come into the target, you're seeing it drop so much that your eye's playing tricks on you when it gets there that it still looks like it's dropping, even though it's entered the deer, because you're just like used to watching it drop so much. So my initial reaction, it hits the deer. I'm like, okay, my windage is perfect. And I'm like, I think I hit him low. And Gabe immediately, he's like, you pinwheeled him. You freaking smoked him. And you hear me say in the clip, I think I hit him low.
So if you've ever hunted deer, every hunter has that moment when you, between time of touch off and time of impact, there's always a little blackout moment there just because adrenaline. Well, I'm watching through the frame of my camera, and I watch this lighted knock sink like right on the shoulder crease, center mass. I'm like, dude, punched. This deer starts peeling off, and I can just see like there's like every 10 yards it would go, blood would squirt out, blood would squirt out. And like I'm convincing myself like that's what I saw. So Ben's like, oh, I hit him low, and I'm like, dude, you fucking pinwheeled him. Like,
Yeah.
He's like, no, I think I hit him low. I was like, no, dude, you pinwheeled him.
Yeah. So he tears off, and we kind of take a moment to celebrate. You know, I give Gabe knuckles. I'm like I think I hit him low. Like, yeah, you know, yeah. How far was he? 91 yards. And all of a sudden, it kind of dawns on us. We're like, we need to run to the other side of the cut and see where this deer went, because from our side we can't. So
it also just started misting on us too.
Yeah, we start hoofing it to the other side, just to see, like, you know, if he pops out of the cut he ran into, like, you know, it's going to be hard to track him. We're going to need to see where he goes. So we never saw him pop out. We could have gotten there too late in our head, you know. I mean, he was hauling ass. Like, he'd have made it through that cut way before we ever got to the other side of the cut we were on. Yeah. But so we find my arrow, and
coated in blood.
Yeah, covered in blood. And we're like, okay, what do we do? Like, do we give this deer time? Like,
this is also getting dark too. It's now, 20 minutes from being legal light.
And I think you were like, if we let it lay, there's not really a problem, but you weren't fully bought into that either. And I was like, here's the thing, like,
I'm always a big fan of like track it the first 100, because that lets you know everything you need to know. If it ain't dead within 100, well, you didn't obviously punch it.
Yeah. So we start tracking, and we had a hard time picking up blood in that prairie grass. And then Gabe finds blood, and we're seeing like, drops of blood consistently, but not like a lot of blood.
And this deer is running down a cut to the point when you're higher up in the cut, there's no trees, it's sage. As you get lower, all of a sudden the deciduous trees take over. And once we reach this deciduous tree line, it's about 90-ish yards, 100 yards from where he shot it. And then we start finding some more blood because it's easier to find.
And it's also, looking back, it's like that's where a deer goes to die.
Straight downhill.
Yeah, straight downhill into some thicker stuff, like, makes sense. But so we get to this like thicker patch where we had to cross this down log, and I kind of thought I saw something. So I'm sitting there glassing for, quite a while, but what I'm glassing is only like 25 yards in front of me, if that. And I didn't see it at first, but so I'm kind of trying to still follow the blood trail, and then I pick my glass back up, and I'm like, yeah, that's a body laying there. And I'm like, Gabe, he's right there, dude. Just piled up, made it 110 yards. And so he's like, where? I don't see him. So we cross the log, and sure as shit, he's right there on the other side of it. And it's like, all the emotions, like we start celebrating, like cloud nine. We killed the deer in velvet, like in mid-October.
Yeah, mid-October.
cool as shit. And so we call the landowner. He's all excited. He's going to come help us with his side-by-side, get it out of there. I FaceTime my girlfriend. I FaceTime my parents. Like, we're just we're literally, like you said, we're on cloud 9.
And we're just going nuts like, dude, how'd you shoot a velvet deer? Because the right side of the rack was rotten velvet. The left side was good velvet.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, dude, it's in full velvet. And Ben's like, why is it in full velvet? And jokingly, I'm like, oh, maybe it's got no nuts.
Right. So we're like recapping the shot. We're like, this is awesome. Like 91 yards. Who shoots a deer? And finally, you're like, maybe it's got no nuts. And so I pick up the legs and I'm like, you're not gonna fucking believe this.
Literally, that's what he said, and I'm like, no way. He's like, it's got a pussy.
So I killed a North Dakota doe with antlers.
Mind you, the mass measurements at the base were like 5 1/4, like just Coke cans, and he shoots a bussy buck.
The one was 6.
Yeah, just insane. Like, it's not like, it's a big frame, like, because we were thinking the whole time, because I think I said something like, maybe it's a half breed because it's got a rack of a whitetail and it's still in velvet, so maybe it's fucked up genetically. All of a sudden he pulls it up and it's got tits.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, no one's gonna believe this, like, the whole time. And then we started making sense of it. Like, all the bucks were bachelored up with other bucks. This deer the entire week was with a group of does. It was with
he was with a buck, but then he'd be with does, and then he'd be by himself, and it was just like
an outcast
weird.
kind
like
of
it, yeah. It just wasn't acting like the rest of the deer were, and that makes sense now. So, at this point, again, mind you, it's Tuesday. We're like, okay, we have till Friday, through Friday. Gabe's got a tag. Like, maybe we'll go home a day early, but we can hunt. Well,
weather went to shit.
A lot of work and a lot of adult beverages later. We didn't wake up till like 10:30 the next morning.
Yeah, we slept in and felt great.
And so we're like, all right, that's fine. Like, we'll go sit the next night. Like, we went kind of to a similar spot that we went where the saddle was, but a little further south where we had seen a lot of whitetails.
Yeah, that was where we scent bumped at 150 probably.
Yeah, and we never saw a freaking whitetail the whole night.
No, we went near deerless.
I could tell Gabe was a little tapped out. We were both like, okay, we can get back to work, get some work done. Like, I can save a day of PTO. Gabe can get caught up on some other stuff. And so we're like, we checked the weather. It was like 100% chance of rain the next day.
It was supposed to rain like an inch and a half.
The whole day was rain. And we're like, okay, we're not hunting tomorrow anyways. So we're literally going to sit at camp to hunt Friday and then pack up Saturday. Like, let's just call it. And so we took the landowner to breakfast the next morning, got on the road, got home, and cut our trip short, but had an awesome freaking trip. It was, I'm so glad it was successful, because
it's surreal out there. Like, you grow up hunting deer in Wisconsin and you go out there and do that trip, and it's like, I was super under the impression that, like, honestly, like, my first 2 days, I was like, I have the feeling that for some reason this is going to be like a one and done for Ben, where he's just like super in love with whitetails, where he's like, yeah, mule deer hunt's cool, but like, dude, whitetails are where it's at. And it's just like, it gives you a different perspective, because it's one of those where it's like, man, it's so fun. Like, this is one of those hunts that you just want to do again.
Yeah, and it's fun to go with somebody that you're close with. Like, I would for sure, I don't know that anything could replace whitetails for me, but mule deer are close after that trip. And like, to do it with a buddy, like, it wouldn't be nearly as fun by yourself.
No, it wasn't. I was going to say,
you've done
it
it
was
by
not.
yourself.
It was defeat. Like, the benefit of it is that, like, we got to we spent not just behind the glass, but half the hunt was strategizing.
Yeah,
where we'd sit there and we'd bounce ideas
off
back and
of
forth.
each other, or sitting, like, even when we were behind glass, we were bullshitting,
or
bouncing more ideas off of each other. Like, we had a ball, and I would for sure do a mule deer hunt every year if I could. I would do that mule deer hunt specifically every year. I would love to do, but I would do a mule deer hunt every year if I, could, or whatever.
And I think, basically, we ended the trip off, like, we talked to the landowner, and it was kind of like, hey, just so you know, like, North Dakota laws, if it's not posted, you can't hunt it.
Oh, yeah.
And their land hadn't been posted for many years, so basically they went out and bought, like,
that's what we did Wednesday for a while.
3 dozen posted signs, and Ben and I went and posted out every ounce of their property.
Yeah, and sounds like he would be more than willing to have us back. So
Yeah, we got a great relationship and found a nice spot, and it was a fun ordeal. But we're definitely not going to talk Missouri because we're an hour and 10 minutes into this, and I can definitely talk for 40 minutes about that trip because between the shit show of buying a boat, blowing up the trailer, blowing up the boat motor,
you got some
tagging out on a 60-inch 8-point.
And I could talk about my Kentucky buck. We could do a 2-for-1 on that podcast.
Yeah, I was say we got more stuff coming up. So next couple episodes, we're definitely going to talk Missouri. Ben's going to talk Kentucky. And then we'll probably have a gun season recap and talk about all the crazy shit that's gone on here the last few days.
So thanks for listening. Go watch that YouTube video for real. It's 29 minutes long, and it's one of the better hunts I've ever watched. So, and I'm not just saying that because it's mine.
We tried to do a short film out of it. Honestly, it turned out as good as I could have hoped. And it's not super boring. It's pretty action packed the entire time, and watching that arrow in slow motion, dude, is just nuts. I think in that video, it takes like 4 seconds for that arrow to go. And
that's the other thing. Gabe has the whole shot on video from 91 yards.
Ben is in the right side of the frame, and the deer is in the left. So you get him standing shooting, and the arrow impacting, and just all the mayhem that happened on this trip. So if you guys are interested, give it a watch. Otherwise, we will see you guys on episode 26 of Post Hunt Clarity.